Oh, oh, look! There it is. The heart of Fantasia.
The nothing is destroying our world. But there just might be one chance. The plains people who hunt the purple buffalo have among them a great warrior. He alone has a chance to fight the nothing and save us. He is our only hope. His name is...
Hey guys, FutureMan19 here, and I believe that it is time to finally tell you the truth about me, of why I created this channel. I made this channel for several reasons, but it all coalesces into one giant purpose. It is something that I could not have explained in a single video, and if you have watched all of my previous videos and really paid attention to them, you would realize this bigger purpose. All of my videos are carefully thought out and thoroughly researched before I make them, so I am never giving you my opinion, but what I know to be the 100% truth. All my videos paint a bigger picture of what the future will become, at least on this timeline. My name is FutureMan19 because I was sent here from the future, or at least to help steer the future away from where it is heading, and this is the 19th time that I have done this. My consciousness was sent here from the 5th density. I am what you call a wanderer or a traveler through what we know as time. A wanderer is a consciousness that travels across the galaxy to help restore the balance in a world that needs it most. So I thought it was time to tell you a little more about myself, about who I am. When I was very young, I had a very vivid experience with death. I was involved in a terrible car accident that involved my entire family. We lived up in the mountains and we had just bought one of those new suburban vans that had fold-down seats in the back where they could be folded down flat where you could lay on top of them like a bed. This was back in the late 80s, early 90s, so these kinds of cars were just becoming a thing, and this was even before they had seatbelt laws. I remember this experience very vividly. I do not have many memories as a child, but I do remember this event very well. We were driving up the mountain going home, and we lived in California, so it was a pretty big mountain. I remember it was my mom and older sister that were in the front seats, and my two brothers and younger sister were laying down with the back seat with my dad and grandma. My youngest sister and grandma were actually in seats in the very back, and I think that they had their seatbelts on, but my brothers and my dad were laying down on the seats that we folded in the back. When it first started to happen, I remember that the car was shaking terribly and that everything started to spin. Everything was spinning, and I remember a bright white light entering through the front window, and this light began to totally engulf the car, and then everything eventually turned into this bright white light. This light filled not only the car but engulfed it as well, while everything continued to spin. This bright white light was all that I remembered when I eventually woke up next to my brothers, placed on a blanket on the side of the road. I remember blood was dried up in my ears and it was hard to move or talk, but I had managed to speak and ask my brothers if they were okay. I also remember that there was this lady staring down at me. I think she was one of the passers-by that stopped to see if we were okay, or she might have been one of the paramedics, I'm not sure. I just remember the look on her face of amazement, like how surprised she was that we had all survived. It turns out that while we were driving up the mountain, this drive was literally looking over a giant cliff with only 2 lanes going either way. This was a very steep climb that we usually take, and I had realized later that the spinning I was experiencing was the car tumbling down the mountain. Spectators said that they had seen us tumble at least 6 or 7 times down the side of the mountain. When the people on the road stopped to see what had happened, they hadn't expected that there would be any survivors. The car was completely crushed. One of my brothers was even thrown out the window. I don't remember too much of the details because I was really young back then when it happened, but I did end up breaking a part of my collarbone. So my mom and I were the only ones hospitalized. Even my brother, who was thrown out of the window, barely had any scratches on him. Everyone has said that us surviving was a miracle. They weren't expecting anyone to be alive when they found us. And my mom had told me years later that when she was laying in that hospital, she had prayed and asked God why we were spared. And she told me that she heard a voice respond to her and say, "These are my warriors." I have had many of these kinds of experiences throughout my life, but this one in particular has always been the one that has stuck out most for me because of how vivid a memory it is and how I felt that something had changed inside of me. From that point on, I felt that I had a mission to perform in this life, that I was saved for a purpose. But that is not the only remarkable thing that came from this experience. I also remember being dead in a place that I call the white space. I've talked about this a little bit in my previous videos.
You would be willing to go on a quest?
What kind of a quest?
To save our world.
Is there any chance of success?
I do not know, but if you fail, the Empress will surely die, and our whole world will be utterly destroyed.
When do I begin?
Have you ever had a dream that wasn't really a dream? It was more like a memory of a different world. So when I had died briefly, I remember going to this place that was all in white, what I like to call the white space or the white room. You see, we are currently in the black space, but on the other side of us, opposite from us, is this white space. I suppose the opposite of this life, which is in the black space, is the white space, which is where you go when you die. And since the car accident happened, I have had a few extremely vivid visions or dreams of this place. So I would like to tell you about these dreams or visions that I've had. The first dream that I had, even though I know it wasn't a dream, because I never remember any of my dreams, and these dreams were all in white, where usually my dreams have an all black background and are always hard to remember. But in these dreams, or maybe I should call them visions or experiences or memories, because that is what it felt like. They were completely different from any other dreams that I've had, other than the fact that I was apparently sleeping when I was remembering them. So I've had 3 different visions or memories of this place called the white space. It is hard to say if it's a past memory or a future vision because this place, I've learned, is timeless. Time doesn't seem to have any effect in here. I guess the more scientific term for this place would be called time-space, because where we reside now is space-time, and this would be flipped around. So in the white space, everything becomes flipped, where we can move through time, but space becomes fixed to that location and time. Some may even describe this place as being heaven, because if you think about it, we are in the opposite of the white space. Just look up at the sky at night. It is all black, right? So I would call where we currently live the black space, or space-time. So anyway, the first vision or memory, I was in this room that was totally white. It's like where Neo goes into that room that stretches out forever and ever and is all white. But the best imagery that I could give you is from the movie The Neverending Story. The Neverending Story is one of the greatest stories of all time, if not the greatest, because it is a story that everyone is a part of and that the universe likes to tell over and over again. Hollywood follows this story in almost every movie or TV show. There is always the central hero that has a mission to perform and then goes through various tasks that are similar from every other version of the story. So I remember being in this white space and I look around and I see it's filled with all kinds of different creatures. It reminds me of the book of Revelation when John was seeing beasts in a place where they were all praising God at his throne. These were humanoids as well as these other kinds of creatures that are hard to describe. But visually, all of these creatures or people were very similar to what you see in this movie, The Neverending Story. And the weird thing is that I felt out of place there because everyone was in conversation or already or doing something and I was only there observing them. It seemed like I was only there visiting. Now, I know people have a gift that they are able to have lucid dreams and talk and do whatever they want in them. I have never had this experience before except for these dreams or visions that I've had. So when I was in this place observing everything, I began thinking to myself and talking to myself. This came as a great shock to me because I have never been able to consciously be aware of myself enough to be able to talk in a dream. This is why I don't believe that it was a dream, but rather a place that I had traveled to, or it was the place that I went to after I had died in that car accident and I was only remembering it again. I know I had died because I remember my spirit coming back into my body, like it flew from a higher place overlooking the earth, and then I went back down into my body, and I have a very vivid memory of that happening. Anyways, I was able to speak in this dream, and I would just continue to call it a dream, and this actually shocked me. It shocked me so much that I remember putting my hands over my mouth and was like, I can speak, this is crazy. And after I started speaking to myself, I looked around and saw a small child near what looked to be a pool of water. So I went up to him and he turned around with a big smile on his face. And what was really interesting about this small boy was that it was me. It was like I had a twin there, but a timeless version of me, one that never grew old, like a Peter Pan version. And I remember he was laughing and he had this water gun in his hand for some reason and started spraying me in the face with it. So my vision started to become blurry and I was putting my hands up to try and stop it, but he was just having too much fun. So I remember yelling really loud, "Stop!" And if you know me, I never yell. I never raise my voice, and this shocked me so much that I yelled so loudly. And when the water had cleared from my eyes, I looked around and saw that everybody in the white space was staring at me, like they had finally noticed that I was there, and they were looking at me as if I didn't belong there. Imagine a bunch of people all in conversation, and all of a sudden they stopped to stare at you. It made me feel really weird, and that is where the vision of this place ended. So why am I telling you all of this? I am telling you that I don't believe that we die, at least not in the way that most people believe it. I mean, I guess most people believe that we go to a place called heaven, and people generally associate that place being filled with light. This would be accurate from what I had seen from this vision of the white space. But I also want to point out that this small child version of me is actually me, but the timeless version of me. He represented my soul, or a part of my soul that is left untouched and pure. The purest and most innocent part of me. I believe that we all have a part of ourselves that are left unblemished and unscathed from this world that we live in. An innocent and pure version of ourselves, a part of our soul that is left in this other place. Some people call this your higher self, or some of you might find it odd that your higher self is actually in the image of your younger self, a childlike Peter Pan that never grows old and never grows up and is timeless. And it brings me to reflect on what Christ has said about entering into the kingdom of heaven, that you must be as a small child to be able to enter into heaven. Future man is my higher self. Future man is the inner child in me. Future man is who we all aspire to be. Everybody has this higher self. Everybody has a future man version of themselves that they will end up answering to in the end. Some of us even have what I like to call master guides and guardian angels. A master guide is there when you need him most. A guardian angel will come swooping in to save you at just the right moment. These are the miracles that we experience throughout life. I have met all three of them in my visions. My master guide is part of a galactic social complex that is in charge of at least 6 different universes or galaxies. I'm able to channel my master guide at times when I need him most, but my higher self is always there speaking to me. It seems that my higher self became really closer to me after my car accident when I was very young. There's something about having a death experience or a near-death experience that changes you, and you can hear about all these kinds of same experiences from people who have had near-death experiences, and most will say the same thing that I am saying. That's why I am not afraid of death, because death is nothing but another adventure waiting for us. So let me tell you about my other dreams.
Bastian. Why don't you do what you dream, Bastian? But I can't! I have to keep my feet on the ground! Bastian! Please! Save us!
In this next dream, I remember standing at the edge of an enormous cliff. I don't know why I was there, I was just there. And I remember thinking to myself, what it would be like to jump off this cliff. And it's kind of interesting that it was a cliff because of my experience with the car accident where we actually rolled down a cliff. But the next thing you know, in this dream, I start to fall off of the cliff. So as I was there thinking about what it would be like to fall off of this cliff, the next thing I know, I begin falling off of it. And I can feel myself falling for what seems like 10 seconds or more, which is quite a long fall if you think about it. And I remember hitting the ground very hard. And if you know anything about dreams or have watched the movie Inception, you would know that when you fall or die in a dream, you immediately wake up. But I didn't wake up. I lied there for a few seconds and I could have sworn that I should have died from this giant fall, but I didn't. And I was somehow alive and conscious lying on the ground. And that's how I knew that I wasn't dreaming a standard dream. I even remember lying there and thinking to myself how wonderful it was to survive a giant fall and still be alive. So when I eventually got up, I brushed myself off and began to look around. I immediately spotted a small cottage in what looked like a scenery from a Disney movie or something because it was so beautiful and peaceful. It would be what I would consider heaven being close to as. The sky was bluish purple with beautiful white clouds, there was green grass, flowers, and it just seemed like a perfect setting. So I ended up walking up to this little cottage, and when I got there I instantly had a familiar feeling that this was my home. It was small with just one open room and one window looking out. There was also a table and next to it was a broom that had just swept up a small pile of dirt that was lying next to it, which I feel is symbolic of the messes in our life that need to be constantly swept up. But what I want to tell you about next is what I saw out this window. When I looked out the window, I saw a giant wall of purple flame that divided what looked like to me was a desert. It had this eerie vibe to it. It was a desert-like terrain with a black sky with thunderings and lightning, like something you would expect out of a horror film. It was basically the opposite of where I was, which was on the other side of this giant purple wall of flame that seemed to go up forever and ever. I knew that there was a reason why this wall of flame was dividing us, and what I saw next, I didn't really realize what it meant until many years later. I remember seeing this line of people that stretched past the horizon as far as the eye could see, and a line that seemed to never end. This line was full of people all standing rather close in a single file line, and the crazy thing was that they were all naked. I was really young at the time, and I don't know why I would be dreaming of naked people, because I hadn't even seen anything like that yet. And they all were heading towards what looked like to be a purplish black vortex. And I remember thinking to myself, why aren't they over here where it is nice and peaceful and perfect? But after pondering over this dream for many years, I realized that they didn't even know that there was another side opposite of the purple wall of flame. And I could see them, but I don't think that they could see me. And this wall was dividing us for a reason. You see, if heaven is really this perfect place, then nothing imperfect would be allowed there. You see, that is the rules of perfection. If something was really perfect, then there wouldn't be any imperfections there, right? I don't make the rules. I don't even know if God makes the rules, but he does follow them explicitly. And I suppose that if God didn't follow the rules, then I would imagine that the universe would no longer bend to his will, because who would follow someone who doesn't even follow their own rules? That's why I believe that science is really the study of God, and that physics is only just the beginning of us understanding what these rules are. But that is a discussion for another time. What was really interesting to me was after thinking about this vortex for some time and wondering what it was or why people were walking in there and where it was taking them, I realized later that they were going back into what I call 3D reality, which is the current reality that we are living in. Wanderers like me are sent back here to this reality to play the game at this level, and the point of this game is to acquire more players. What does a hero always do in his story? He acquires more friends or helpers to help him along the way. I call it a game because it is like a game to me, because I'm someone who has been playing it for a very long time. I'm not here to gloat or to ring my own bell, so to speak. I'm only here to show you the truth. And the best way that I can show you the truth is to tell you by experience that there is something miraculous in this world that cannot be fully explained. It can only be felt. You see, this reality, what I call 3D life, is full of shadows. Like, for example, if you were stuck in a box, which is what 3D represents, then you would be in a room full of shadows. And you might feel that the truth is inside this box because that is all you can see. But in 3D life, we only ever see 3/4 of the picture. The other quarter relies on faith to see.
Why is it so dark? In the beginning, it is always dark.
9/23 was the truth. It was an impossible event that should not have happened. It was a miraculous event. And when I was making those videos about 9/23, I felt destined to finish them. Like I had felt something pushing me to do them, and I feel like I did it in time to fulfill the prophecy. I was able to upload my first video ever on my YouTube channel on the same day as the Great American Eclipse. I wanted to prove that this reality isn't what you think it is, that it can be manipulated by thought alone. Just like in the quantum experiment called the double slit experiment, reality can be altered by the observer of it. I am what you call a quantum observer. I know things that normal people would never even think of. I can see messages hidden like breadcrumbs that the universe leaves for those who can see beyond what's in front of their faces and be able to find and decipher the true meaning of it all. I know all the conspiracies. I know enough about quantum physics that I have experienced it firsthand for myself. You see, I do not even know if this life is what I think it to be. As far as I know, I am still dead from that car wreck so long ago, and that everything is still spinning, like the Earth or our galaxy that's spinning, because I am still tumbling down that mountain, while this life that I could have had is flashing right before my eyes. Or maybe this is even another timeline that I have teleported to finish carrying out my mission here on Earth. Or maybe 9/23 happened from me just believing in it so much, having 100% faith in it that it would happen. 9/23 is the ultimate proof of the double slit experiment that all these scientists have been looking for, that the observer ultimately creates reality, and those who have faith enough can move mountains, bending the matrix to their will, and my life has been proof of that. Do you hear the universe speaking to you? Do you see the messages that it is trying to give you? Let's stop and listen for a moment. Do you hear what the world is trying to tell you, to tell all of us? That we must change or we are headed for a quite sudden destruction. This has happened to many civilizations before and empires since man has had history in this solar system. Even before this planet, we were destructive in our ways, which is also a discussion for a later time. I have so much more that I want to show you. I have so much more that I want to say, but I'm not sure if I will have the time to finish everything before the end beginning. You will need to make up for those parts that I don't say, because this is your story too. You too can become the one in your own story, the hero. But in order to become the one, you must follow the law of one, and only you can discover what that truly means. But if you would like to know more of what the law of one means to me, join me on the School of Enlightenment on Facebook, or follow me on Twitter or Twitch app at FutureMan19. Thank you all for watching. May you find the peace that you deserve.